Hello. So, yeah, I don't know where to begin, but oh yeah, just I'm a little lost, I guess. Because I had these ideas and everything, and then it's like, oh, you're on our side, and then the other side's, no, you're on our side, and everyone's twisting and pulling me, my whole life. Give me bad feeling orgasms all my life, just about to last year. And although I had a full body tension release earlier this year as well, and I didn't know that's what was causing it. People raping me with their children and shit, and I'm, okay with the sorries too. Recently got raped, for complaining at the food bank for doing their fucking like manipulations. I remember my grandmother, was like, I'm tired of being raped. It's like, what are you talking about? I thought it was just like a crazy old woman talking. It's like, oh, but then I got to thinking, it's like, wow, she would go on these trips for a few days. I lived with her for a few years, and she would go on these trips to the casino, for a few days with a friend, some friends, some other cult members and shit. And I don't mean to seem like a people pleaser and everything, but I am trying to balance the light and the dark and everything and better management, and that's the way to do it. And so, I don't please everyone entirely, but I think some of the stuff I talked about is a good way to do it. Just focus on your family, instead of getting in everyone else's business. Look at how they fucking make you. They ICE and Child Protective Services, just sex trafficking. You guys do it everywhere. You should let the demons do it somewhere. That doesn't please, the one group. And then and I'm just kind of at a loss, and maybe that's why you're all facing a reset, because no one wants to solve any problems. And I don't know. I'm just at a loss. And I would like to. You have a lot of lovely women, but they're all going to be them and the cults and their cults, and then it's going to be me against everyone else, and I haven't been entirely impressive in this lifetime as opposed to past lifetimes. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, maybe it's, because I could be really impressive, and then like everyone else is like, oh, we can't measure up. So now this time people could surpass me or whatever, and and maybe that's the point, Um, on top of people keeping me from all sorts of lawsuits and whatnot, if things were actually fair and just, I wouldn't have to ever worry about money again. And I'm sort of in that position, and I'm grateful for the benefits I do get. But people are like, oh, get a job, get a job, get a job, and it's like, no, you know what? No. I'm not going to get plugged back into the matrix again. No, thank you. As a reflector, I think it's just best that I keep doing, what I'm doing, which is more productive than other people seem to be doing and whatnot. So you do have really lovely women, like the one, that moved in, recently near me here. She looks like, this childhood girl that they tried hooking me up with when I was a child, but like the adult version, and she seems really lovely. Unfortunately, she has like a really bad diet though, and yeah, her body is a little fucked up. I guess my body is too, also fucked up. I went and was an idiot. I got, bioweapon, shots. Um, I got the first two. Um, I just really don't have a desire to have any children. Yeah, people, I can't tell if it's the child protectors or the child, traffickers, when they needlessly bring their children around me. But I just kind of like look at it and I'm like, I just kind of think to myself, I'm like, I notice it, and, I don't get like so emotional to get loosed and everything anymore. The last time was when they brought someone that looked like my ex, and they all got off on that shit, and I see the game now, and it's like, oh, okay, you're just going to bring people that look exactly like people that I love, and I only dated from like 19 to like 21, maybe 22. I dated a few women, couldn't make it work because I was all roofie possessed and shit. Yeah, people like roofie possess me, roofie molest me, shove things in my ass, and then I like that, and I get just shit from everywhere, and it's just, it's just shit. It's just shit. I never really had a friend. I had people, wanting that handler money, and people, getting vehicles and everything, and just being hooked up for being a handler. And never really had a friend, did I? And just realizing all this shit, and it's just shit. And I'm supposed to come here and help everyone, but it's like everyone is just really shitty, or it looks like that. I know not. There's very few people. It seems like a different 1%. Not the rich, but that actually get what I'm going through and everything, and they get me, and I believe they still support me and whatnot, because yeah, I am trying to balance things out between the light and the dark, achieve balance, one of my divine missions. So when I talk about this shit, I do get reactions, like, throughout, I mean, for the past few years, I see it. And those are my manifestations, along with, my little crew of miscreant helpers. Um, so yeah, I do appreciate that. I don't know. I need to write this book. I feel that they put equipment above me all the time to fucking make me not. So then I can't even focus, on a book that I really want to write about all this stuff. Make me a little bit of money. I don't want to flip your poisonous burgers or hand out your poisonous food at your pantries. I'm not into fucking your children unless they're like, someone my age. I guess I could do your college girls, because y'all fucking, trained me that way. You trained me to be worse than that. Trained me to be like David Koresh. But I turned out a lot better. And I don't know. I just So I don't need people's, weaponizing my sexual abuse and everything to make me an Albastar. That's Albaster, just another form of a demon that a lot of people get, like, hooked on, and they're like, yeah, this is sexual shaming, and it's like a lot of the traffickers, they'll just, like, rape children with their children into their adulthood, but maintaining the child status. And then they pivot into misdirecting the mob into attacking them, and then you could end up attacking someone their whole life, and then not realize that you're actually doing that. And then yeah, when people hit the afterlife, we have these communications, maybe not verbal discussions, but communications that are like, so you participated in torturing someone for their whole life, and it doesn't go down the way people think it does a lot of times. And you guys play weird games and whatnot. People like, You should open up prostitution. It's like, yeah, give me shit for that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you guys do it anyway. So the women or anyone involved in that can't go to the cops. What for any help or anything, and you create this situation where it's just beneficial for the evil, and it's not really beneficial. Like could I ejaculate inside a vagina, and then I could perceive someone as anyone as threats, as predators, and then could I just like abuse that person? Maybe we could just like roofie rape them as a child into their adulthood, using my children and other people's children into their adulthood. And then does that sound all right? No, yeah, huh? No one really ever talks to me about anything. So I disappoint the Satanists, because it's like they're like, Chris, we have all these teenagers and everything, and then there's also like the child protectors getting rooked too, and they're like, yeah, of course we're going to dress our child up like a slut and we're going to go on a predator hunt. It's like, what the fuck are you fucking doing? Just you don't even need to do all that shit. You could just like live your life, and or live it better. But I guess people need entertainment. Are you not entertained with the shit that y'all do? So yeah, I get tortured and abused a lot when I come here, and this existence is no different. And my soul is just like, man, I don't even want to participate. And I almost feel at times that you don't even deserve the help. And like I said earlier, that's why you probably all deserve a reset. Because you just, you're like India, where people make fun of Indians throwing shit at each other, like this big fucking thing. And that's a huge mind control that they're being inflicted with as well in India. So it's not necessarily their fault, but I guess it's not necessarily your fault, but you all just like taking a shit in your hands and you're throwing at each other, and you're picking it up and continuing throwing it at each other. And it's just like, man, like, no wonder y'all facing a fucking reset and shit. I guess you could Matt Gates me. That isn't that entirely impressive, or showing of my character or whatnot. I'd like to help out, but no one really helps me helping you out. Like, I volunteered at a one place, and they essentially made up a bunch of stuff, did all this hardcore manipulation just to make me look a certain way, and I'm like, fuck you, just to pretend. And they are seemingly the child traffickers as well. So because they like to, business is about appearances, right? Business about appearances, and you guys go way above an eye for an eye. You have all these anti-Jesus networks that would attack, Jesus-like people. Jesus isn't, with everything being distorted at this point and twisted and perverted, everyone's view of Jesus is totally skewed. Totally skewed. They're, oh no, they're just, love, like, he never hated anyone. Well, that was like, what about the fucking money changers? What about that shit? That was, very Satan-like of Jesus to do that. Like there was a time where I was getting harassed hard. It was here, they're like wearing steel-toed boots and stomping wherever I fucking would go in my apartment directly above me, playing these stupid little games, and just menacing me, right? Making the little noise harassments. So I, got angry, and my Satan side came out, and I had this lock that I found that I didn't know the combination to on the ground. It was just like on the sidewalk, and I like picked it up, and I got this empty tuna can, and I attached it to the string, and I started dragging, it around. So it was like metal scraping on the ground and shit. That was very Satan-like. But it was also like, okay, you're going to harass me with noises, fine. Fuck you. I'm going to walk around town like this, and I did. I didn't walk around town. So it's like, all right, you're going to irritate me. I'm going to irritate all you, and that was pretty badass too. And so I don't mean to seem like I'm servile or that I'm a people pleaser, although I have been like that in the past. But I realized that I was going down this Albastar path, this demonic Albastar path that uses sexual shame as well. And people pretend, as if it is the worst thing in the world. And you like, look, there's people that, are fine with it. There's people that are not fine with it. Then why don't that be the fucking thing? Then like families, have a right to raise their kids as they see fit, with I think more reason than you're allowing today, because y'all designing these systems to try to protect children, and yet they're taken over and corrupted by the demons, and then they end up being the problem. People are like, you gotta get rid of ICE, you gotta get rid of CPS, and everyone, and it's like you just gotta get rid of the federal government, or like reboot it, purge all the corruption, get rid of a lot of nonsense laws, like they use the drug laws to fucking separate families. They send their, drugged up son or daughter, your son's or daughter's way to get them hooked, and then breed. And then that's when the hammer comes down. I knew this chick in Colorado Springs. Her name was Angel, and she was very lovely. And, she was in that situation where there was a bunch of, people that got her hooked on meth, and then they took her few kids away. That sound, it just sounds so stupid. So it's like, why don't you just, open up your prostitution so that it could be open and more honest, and then you don't need to do all this family separation shit, and families could just like be themselves and shit, and people are like, no, we want like endless war, and I'm just not for the endless war either, because you're like tilting the pendulum, so, far in either direction, and then it swings back. And, I'm like, how about we just like balance it out? And everybody's like, fuck you, and it's like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe y'all really deserve that reset. That's very likely coming soon. I don't know, 10 days, 10 years. Unless you get your act together, but it's unlikely. Don't mean to sound so hopeless, but I was full of a lot of hope and everything, and then it just, I'm realizing all this stuff, and people, as I said, they just roofie rape me with their kids, and then the psychological warfare, just like little things, like, well, shoving things up my ass, as a child, but grabbing your children and pulling them away from me. Like, ever since I was a child, people did that when I was a child. But they don't really know that history. It's like, oh, it's an adult and da da da. The psychological warfare. Let's continue. And I'm just, I just kind of think it's pathetic. And and then there's like, I'm like, okay, this one seems to be, like a child, protector. That one seems to be a child protector. That one seems to be a child protector thing, and then there's one that's like, oh, you're actually offering, and then I'm like, okay, I have a hard time with sex, really hard time with sex, because I'm asexual. And people laugh at that, get Jimmy Dore to fucking make fun of that, like in Denver in 2024, huh? Make fun of asexuals. It's like, yeah, well, it's been a major protection for me since people have been trying to manipulate me sexually ever since I was a fucking child. And people do that, like, and then you grandstand, you're like, we caught a predator, and then you don't even know all that history, that even that, predator may not even know themselves that they've been roofie molested a whole bunch by all these children. No one ever talks about that. No, it's just always one-sided. It's just, oh, no, predators. Yeah, well, how about, like, parents getting their children to fucking prey on, adults and children sexually? No one ever talks about that, huh? I'm the only designated asshole talking about that. No one wants to get on a podcast that Jeremy Woods, doing shit to my fucking burger at Wendy's in Colorado Springs. He was very tall, very tall. Child protection. You just, you turn me off. You turn me off. Like, I come here willingly. I'm not trapped. I'm not trapped. And even if I did get trapped here, like your petty, 80 years, maybe 100 at best, but probably less lifespans ain't shit. They ain't shit. I'm, trying to help y'all ascend. And that's maybe why I'm not as impressive in this lifetime, because I'm like, look, you're fine. You guys, do better, please. And still it's like shit, and and yeah, so I don't know. I'm just kind of, I want to write my book. I really do. I get caught up, with the social media stuff and YouTube and everything, and it's very hard to unplug. Um, and people are like, well, discipline and everything, and it's like, well, I don't know. These things must be really easy for you, I guess, because you got raised differently. It's not like my parents did a bad job either. It's just, that roofie possession of mine, which many people don't believe in, was very, very harmful and very, very damaging to, my lifelong habits and just everything, and I do, like I said, I'm grateful for my blessings here. I get, taken care of pretty well. It's very nice. I do appreciate my helpers. Um, it is a drop in the bucket though. Like y'all tithing to demons and shit, but then when an actual God shows up, not so much tithing, huh? Right. So so I get a little fraction of the tithings, but we don't even really demand that. So I mean, I guess I have what I need. I would like some extra, and that would be with a book that, where I'm talking about these odd culty truths, where one side doesn't want me to talk about that, and then the truth people do want me to talk about it. So, but I don't know. I think they hit me with things to make me, have brain fog, lose focus, artificial psychic signals, like sort of mind control, definitely mind control. Shit to just, subdue me, keep me in a cage, because I'm the parrot that talks. The crow asked why the parrot. The crow flew up to, the parrot in the cage and said, like, why are you in a cage? And the parrot was like, because I speak. So stuff like that. And it's like my situation. She is, that new neighbor is really, really lovely. And I just got a bad feeling too, like, and I was just watching that Statements by Alex. Like I trust Statements by Alex, making a child with her, but she like totally turned off to me. I talk about my dildos too much, and that, little struggle, and I don't think it always brings you at a low vibration, but excessive use of that can. Um, but yeah, it's been a really big protection for me too. So people are like, "Oh, masturbation!" Like people are teaching me masturbation was like bad, like when I was a fucking child, teenager, and it's like, yeah, well, that's also a major protection, because people are trying to sneak a child of God out of me for free, mind you. um so they're like, well, yeah, you got to come in the pussy, Chris. You got, when you're orgasming. I had some gang members when I was in jail and shit, because I just, nothing but punished, right? So I had gang members be like, you, when you're orgasming, you thrust. Oh, you mean the urge that I get to thrust when I orgasm? Do that, inside a vagina, right? And there was a few years ago when I was in Colorado Springs, and I'm still being poisoned constantly, but they sent me a hooker, and she's like, no, I can't get pregnant, and she probably did get pregnant, you know, and but I was still possessed. So yeah, I remember just recently last year I was walking in the office, this park a few miles up the road, and there was this kid standing there, and the caretaker or father figure was like, his name is Damien, and I think that was my child. The child was just standing there staring. It was very strange. I felt that weird ESP feeling, and I'm pretty sure that was my child that they got out of me. But that was a child of possession, and maybe that's what they were looking for. They were looking for the demons, not the child of God. So it's all very weird, but I am charging heavily now for good reason, for the next child of God. I've been dispossessed. That you need to be in my troidal field, to actually get what you're seeking. So I'm not worried about people stealing cum anymore. And yeah, I've been just so violated. There was this other chick I slept with when I was homeless and I was living in a van, and it was agreed upon. Like, look, if we're going to have sex, then like, we don't use a condom, although I normally do. But this particular time, she like agreed to just pull out, which I could totally do. I could totally pull out. And anyway, so she got on top of me though, and I'm like, eventually I'm like, I'm about to ejaculate, and then she wouldn't get off of me, and then I didn't see her till like 13 months later, and then she like ran off and everything, and I didn't see her. Like, was my child sacrificed at some sort of gathering there, you know? Because not many kids have been brought around my way where they're like, like, hey, this is your child. There was that one time, but other than that, I'm not into feeding off of the innocent, and that's there's magic in sex and sexual activities, and that's not for me to take. It's your world and everything, and it's your world to make, and your choices to make, and yeah. So, I mean, although yeah, sure, I guess you could Matt Gates me, and you could make me think, almost an adult is an adult. That's why I asked for two forms of ID. You know, but yeah, I just I'm a little lost. I really want to write this book so bad and just get out of here and just get a place away from people. I just want a place in nature. You know, and it would be nice if I could have a woman that was like, us against the world, and it's not like we're trying to, destroy the world or anything, but it's like, look, there's a lot of you that have those relationships that I don't think I could ever have. Because she's always going to be serving the cult, and the cult is going to be like, well, it's time to stab Chris in the back, and do her little Erica Kirk nonsense handler shit. And a lot of you guys are caught up in a lot of those relationships where it seems like she's loyal to you, but she's actually loyal to someone above you, and I'm just not down with that. And and yeah, and it seems like that's all they fucking have to offer is someone that's loyal to the cult above me, and I'm not down with that. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't rub me right. Um, so yeah, I'm glad everyone else could, seemingly have, nice relationships and everything, and I'm glad you're all surpassing me, having fun and everything. I've, done these things in many lifetimes. But maybe I, am doing things a little different now because, I'm just trying to elevate you above me, and I don't even think that that's even working, so I don't know. The reset, right? Yeah. When there's no actual solution and you all just want to just poop in your hands and throw it at each other, then I guess the reset, is the solution. Yeah, you guys always be digging up things and everything. They found some Roman columns in some other country, buried. Yeah, the resets, the resets, all these things buried. The resets, the resets. And trying to help you out, whether you think it or not, but it's just, I don't know, maybe too far gone or something. I don't know. Um, but anyway, there's my thoughts on, that, and I'm really tired of talking about sexual abuse. Yeah, that's another thing is like they send me these. I went to this message, this lighthouse writers meetup, or this lighthouse writers group in Denver here, and they messaged me back and they're like, yo, you could go to this, sexual abuse, place where people are just going to talk about their sexual abuse. I'm almost to the point where like I don't care. I really don't. People are so abusive with their sexual abuse that they could go around and fucking rape me and roofie rape me with their fucking children into my fucking adulthood, and then use that as justifications for further abuse, and not only just on me, but on a bunch of your brothers and sisters, and you're just attacking yourselves, divide and conquer, and you're not getting it. You're not getting. You got Jimmy Dore to be like, yeah, fucking Kyle Rittenhouse killed some pedophiles. I don't know. Did the people that Kyle Rittenhouse fucking kill? Did they kill people? Oh, so that's way above an eye for an eye, huh? Isn't it? And your fake righteousness, right? Slap that shit on. It's fake righteousness for child protection. Look, our leaders are fucking, trying like poisoning us and everything with all these bioweapons and shit, but they're doing it for the protection of others. Oh, you guys look so alike. Funny how that works. You really do look exactly alike. You just do it. And could I come inside a vagina and start using, well, I'm worried about my child to start fucking abusing everyone else? No? Yeah? Yes, that's what you do. Could I make a show out of it? Could I abuse your children into their adulthood, and then I can make like a show called like How to Catch a Predator 2. Is going to be better than the first one. No? Oh, strange. Anyway, you guys have a lovely day. Peace the fuck out.